For millions of people, the Caribbean is paradise. Crystal clear water, sandy beaches, palm trees. But in the midst of all of that, Haiti stands out as a complete and utter dumpster fire. It's a never-ending cycle of violence, poverty, and overall disaster. It recently turned into a war zone as gangs, led by a guy named Barbecue Cherize, literally took over the country. After the military kept overthrowing presidents, the government disbanded the army. That left a power vacuum, and Barbecue and his gangs took over. They attacked police stations, government buildings, and the presidential palace. They recruited more soldiers by emptying the prisons. And as the country fell into chaos, dogs literally feasted on the dead bodies left in the streets. Now that's a failed state. On top of that, most people live there in abject poverty, with limited access to basics like electricity or clean water. Trash is everywhere, and UNICEF says a quarter of the families use the outdoors as their toilet. Over 5% of children die before their 5th birthday, and the average lifespan is just 64 years old. If you were playing Misery Bingo, Haiti fills in every slot on the card. The world's pumped in billions of dollars trying to help Haiti. The UN, the US, and over 20 countries have sent troops time and time again to keep a lid on things, and nothing seems to stick. So how does a country with so much natural beauty, literally in the middle of vacation land, fail so epically? When you look at Haiti's problems, to an extent, they're everything. So the elephant in the room is, what the heck? I mean, why has this happened? Now, when you try to research that, the 3 top answers are always the same: colonialism, natural disasters, and corruption. But if you scratch just below the surface, those first 2 answers don't make much sense. Hi, I'm Ken LaCourte. I do my best to research uncomfortable topics and give you straightforward, sometimes unpopular answers. Because when we're afraid to answer these questions honestly, we shouldn't be surprised when our solutions don't work. In Haiti, that means looking closely at foreign aid, but also digging into things that people usually don't say out loud, like how Haitian culture or even religion might play a role. And the most surprising thing I learned, it wasn't that long ago that Haiti was in decent shape. First up, the usual suspects. Let's start with natural disasters. The country has certainly been smacked hard by hurricanes and earthquakes over the years. But natural disasters hit every Caribbean island, even the Dominican Republic, literally right next door. Those disasters hurt Haiti, but they're not unique to it. There's way more at play here than Mother Nature going after one island. So the number 1 scapegoat for Haiti's issues? Colonialism. Specifically French colonialism. Now look, as an American, anytime I can blame the French for something, it makes me a little warm and fuzzy inside. But there's no doubt about it, the French were brutal as hell in Haiti. In the 1700s, they turned it into a cash cow, the most profitable colony in the world. It was built on the back of African slaves, and the sugar and coffee plantations were like gold mines. But it was a harsh slavery system. The slave population in Haiti was twice as large as the total number of slaves shipped to all of North America combined. And by the late 1700s, slaves outnumbered free people 10 to 1. You could probably guess what happened next. The slave revolution started with the Night of Fire in 1791. Slaves torched plantations, destroyed crops, and went Rambo on their oppressors. It got ugly, and it didn't stop.
Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!
It took 13 years for them to win their independence, and one of the first things the new Haitian emperor did was an ethnic cleansing, murdering almost all of the remaining 4,000 French men, women, and children on the island. Now, no one blames slaves for fighting and achieving their freedom. But imagine if after the Civil War, every white person was killed or ejected from the United States. You'd be throwing out the evil of slavery, but also the benefits of that culture, like civilization. That doesn't immediately create a Wakanda, but a whole host of problems. Then France threatened to invade again in 1825 unless Haiti coughed up a big chunk of dough. And those reparations kneecapped the country's early growth. And a number of slave-owning countries boycotted it as well. And the worst part, the ruling class never got its act together, even through today. Haiti's had about 60 rulers in its history, but only 6 managed to finish their terms peacefully. The rest were overthrown or killed. But every nation on earth is the product of violence and oppression. And that French debt was paid off back in 1947. So why has Haiti been stuck in the mud since forever? Well, the answer is that it hasn't. A few generations ago, Haiti was actually keeping pace with its neighbors. It was still a developing country, but it wasn't what it is now. So to really get to the bottom of Haiti's problems, we need to look right next door at the Dominican Republic. Haiti and the DR are 2 countries on one island. You think they'd be pretty similar. They faced many of the same challenges over the years: dictators, turmoil, natural disasters, foreign interventions, the whole 9 yards. And in the 50s, they were on fairly equal footing. Haiti was actually one of the wealthier countries in the region, but today it's like the tale of 2 islands. The gap between those 2 countries is mind-blowing. The DR's standard of living is 6 times higher than Haiti's, depending on how you measure it. Dominicans live 9 years longer on average. Haiti's infant mortality rate is nearly double, and the maternal mortality rate is 5 times worse. The Dominican Republic became one of the richest countries in the Caribbean, while Haiti is the poorest in the Western Hemisphere by far. So how did those two countries dealt similar hands end up so differently? It turns out leadership and economic policies matter a lot. First up, leadership. From the 1930s to the 1960s, the DR had a dictator named Rafael Trujillo. He was a ruthless dude, but he modernized the country. He built infrastructure, developed agriculture and industry. He invested in education and healthcare, and after him, the Dominican Republic kind of made a hard turn away from military dictatorships and towards something resembling democracy. Haiti, on the other hand, found itself under the boot of Papa Doc Duvalier and his son, Baby Doc. For 30 years, those guys ran Haiti into the ground, siphoning off wealth and crushing dissent. Foreign aid that came into the country, much of that went right into the pockets of Haiti's ruling class instead of actually helping the people who needed it most. Which brings us to Haiti's number one problem that I mentioned earlier, corruption. It's even worse than poverty or infrastructure there, and that's saying something. Corruption isn't just an annoyance in Haiti. It's a cancer that's spread through the entire system. It's not a few bad politicians, but an entrenched culture where bribery, graft, and embezzlement are the norm. From low-level bureaucrats to the upper levels of government, personal enrichment often trumps public service. It not only siphons away needed money, but it destroys people's trust in the institutions as well. Imagine trying to run a small business if contracts can't be enforced or are given away to somebody who knows somebody else. And what outsider would want to invest in a country where their business rules can be bought and twisted? Corruption cripples nations, not just Haiti. Out of almost 200 countries, you can count on one hand those that rank high in corruption and have a high GNP per person. And every one of those countries is literally sitting on a massive oil reserve. And economic policies overall aren't just abstract concepts. They're the difference between a country that thrives and one that barely survives. Think of just one basic issue, property rights. In Haiti, most farmers work on land they don't actually have a clear title to. So that makes it impossible for them to get a loan to work it or improve it because they can't use the land as collateral. The Dominican Republic sorted out that mess decades ago, and to no one's surprise, food productivity shot up. That country now grows all the food its residents need to live, and Haiti still stays dependent on the world. Businesses in the DR at least know that they can count on the Dominican government to exist, to enforce property rights, encourage economic growth. And I know it's vogue to complain about free markets and capitalism, but it's brought more people out of poverty than anything humankind has figured out yet. In Haiti, on the other hand, they rely on charity. The amount of foreign aid that the world has poured into Haiti is staggering, with most of it coming from the US. Foreign aid often makes up a third of the entire economy, which is about the same as the Haitian government's total spending itself. Despite those billions of dollars, it hasn't helped Haiti in the long run. I mean, it's weird because aid seems like a great thing. Wealthy countries coming together, helping out a struggling neighbor. What's not to like? But reality is messier. And in Haiti's case, it's often done more harm than good. Now, Haiti is essentially an aid-dependent nation. The government can't even handle basic things like sanitation, electricity, or clean water. Instead, that's all handled by an array of charity organizations, over 10,000 of them, that keeps the government on life support. The government itself barely governs. It's a classic case of toxic charity. Outsiders have been propping up Haiti for so long the government has no motivation to fix its own problems. Why bother providing basic services like electricity or clean water if a relief group can do it for you? Even on a small level, if you go down and volunteer to build something or to give a village free clothes, you've helped them. But you've also hurt the craftspeople and merchants trying to make a living that way. So it's a bizarre cycle. In Haiti, the massive influx of foreign aid and workers has a lot of side effects. It drives up basic prices like food and housing. It lures workers out of jobs that could build a self-sustaining country and has them work for foreigners. And, as it always has, that aid money fuels the corruption racket itself. There's actually a great book I read years ago called Toxic Charity, and it looks at the pitfalls of charity on a large countrywide scale as opposed to individuals. If you're involved in charity in any way, it's a worthwhile read. So here's where I'd like to look at the difficult questions that are often swept under the rug. Race, religion, and culture. They're touchy subjects, but if we want to truly understand Haiti's struggles, we can't shy away from them. Some argue that racial differences between Haiti and the Dominican Republic might explain the divergent paths, and it's a fair question. Haiti's population is of African descent, while the Dominican Republic is more Latino-Hispanic. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture, race alone doesn't really seem to be like a smoking gun. For a black Caribbean nation, Haiti is in a league of its own of badness. And for a Latino nation, the Dominican Republic's been killing it. But we should look at broader cultural influences, and one of those is voodooism. Now, I realize it's terribly unpopular to criticize a religion, except Christianity, but voodooism has a distinctive, unique belief system that influences its culture, and it deserves a look. It's a blending of African and Catholic beliefs, where spirits serve as intermediaries between God and humans. There are thousands of these spirits called Loa. And to change your situation, let's say heal a sickness, you petition a spirit through rituals or offerings. And more than most religions, voodooism is steeped in the idea of fatalism, the belief that events are predetermined and inevitable. When you combine that with a nonstop parade of misery, it can breed resignation. I mean, why bother trying to improve things if the universe has already declared you're screwed? That mindset can be crippling. It's not a blanket statement, of course. Plenty of voodoo practicing Haitians are working hard to make a better life for themselves and their country. But in a society where voodoo is so prevalent, its influence on the collective psyche can't be ignored, even if you're not supposed to talk about it. And that brings us to the broader importance of a nation's mindset itself. If a society collectively believes it's doomed to failure, that can be self-fulfilling. Imagine growing up in a world where struggle is all you know, where your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents all face the same crushing hardships. I mean, if an athlete is convinced he's a loser, he will be. And a defeatist attitude can infect an entire nation as well. You combine that with their well-earned distrust of their government, and Haiti's stuck in like the world's worst feedback loop ever. I mean, its national motto could literally be vicious cycle. All that said, I want to leave on a positive note. I mean, none of these numbers are good in comparison to normal countries, but in the past 30 years or so, substantially more kids are going to primary school. The percentage of children who die young has been cut in half, and life expectancy has risen from an average of 55 to the 64 years I mentioned. That's a decent amount of improvement. They're small steps, but they're something. I know a number of people who've traveled to Haiti, always for charity work, and they say that despite all the mess, Haitians are actually pretty cool. They make the best of it. They're a beautiful people who take pride in their appearance and their resilience. There's lots of art, lots of color, lots of smiles. They're remarkable survivors trying to make the best of a raw deal. Hey, I hope I minimize my biases here to give you a fair presentation. I did the same with this video about the Black Lives Matter movement in the US and what it accomplished. There was both good and bad fallout from that. YouTube didn't like my video, but you might. As always, if I made any substantive mistakes here, yell at me down below and I'll pin them in the comments. Thanks for watching.